Hello everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This video is a follow-up from the one I did a few days ago where I'd been to a question time event where there were political parties sat on a panel and various questions were put to them, and it made me think a great deal about who will I vote for in the next general election, and it's going to come this year almost certainly. So I basically decided that I would sit down and make a list of 10 issues that I wanted to see pledges for in manifestos from the political parties. And so without any further ado, I'm going to get off to start with number one. And number one for me is definitely climate commitment. I want the party that I vote for to be committed to a net zero 2050 date. I want them to move away from the use of fossil fuels. So that would mean issuing no licenses for fossil fuel exploration, and in fact revoking any licenses that have been issued in the last year or two that need to be revoked, in my view. So that's what I'll be looking for. So I want my government to be fully committed to the climate emergency. I want the United Kingdom to start leading the world. We've led the world in the past in many things. So let's lead the world in climate. Let's show the world what can be done, how we can do it, and how effective and how committed we are to achieving our net zero CO2 emission goals. That's what we need to do. We need to set an example to the world. And so that's what I'm looking for number one in the party that I'll be voting for. So, number two is a green economy. I want to see the party that I vote for pledge to establish a green economy in the United Kingdom, clean rivers, restoration of nature, and setting the green agenda at the very basic basis of our economy. In other words, green technology, environmental protection, all of these things which are essential to restoring the planet to a livable planet, and also restoring nature to a level that we can enjoy again, because nature is rapidly disappearing and it's essential for the well-being of people, for their minds and bodies and souls. I need it, and I'm sure many, many other people do. And a lot of people have forgot about it. But we need to get those things on track. We need to get green technologies in the forefront of any industry, manufacturing, etc. We need to encourage small businesses with innovations, green innovations, anything that's green. That's good for the planet. Let's get it moving. Let's start an industry of green technology and lead the world again in that. I want to see clean rivers. I want to see our approach to the nature, to the countryside. I want it changed. I want to see it as a priority to clean our rivers, to protect our rivers, protect nature. We've got to protect these things, because without nature and without green places where we live, it will have a massive effect on the well-being of people. I'm sure it will. And also, we're not the only ones on this planet. You know, there's lots of creatures, animals, big and small, who rely on a clean, safe environment, and we have an obligation, I feel, to provide that for them. And we could make the United Kingdom one of the greenest and most pleasant lands in the world, and people would flock here to see our lovely nature, see our rivers teeming with wild fish, see all our birds soaring over the mountains and the hillsides, and wild animals. It would be a marvellous thing for our economy, because it would attract people to come here and see it. So that's number two. Okay, so number three will be the NHS. It's a massive undertaking to have an efficient and effective NHS, but we can do it. It can be done. And we need to treat the doctors, the consultants, the nurses, the staff, the cleaners, people who work in the NHS need to be treated with respect, and they need to be paid a good, proper living and a living wage. Basically, they need to be paid for what they do, for their training, their capabilities, their their care, anything about anybody who works in the NHS. They've got to be committed, and if they're not committed, and if we can't get the staff in the NHS, which we haven't got enough at the moment, then we need to pay more. So we need to pay them a proper wage, in other words. So we shouldn't be having doctors going on strikes and nurses going on strike. That's ridiculous in this day and age. We need those doctors. They've been to university for years, getting all these qualifications. Don't you think we should pay them a proper wage, a good wage, well above average wage, because they are experts and they've put a lot of work in, and we need them in our NHS. So we need to start taking the NHS a bit more seriously. We need to get it becoming more efficient, have more efficient practices, and we need to pay the people who work in it a proper wage. So that's my number 3. So number 4 in my list is the way that we treat the vulnerable and the less off in our society. I don't think we treat them well at all. I think it's essential that we give them support, the necessary support to get into employment and to be able to look after themselves, and for the children to be fed properly. We should not have to have food banks. We have loads of food banks. I work for a food bank, volunteer for a food bank, so I know how essential. Do you know the food bank I work for, only half the amount of food that they give out is donated by the supermarket or the people who are in the supermarket. The rest of it they have to buy themselves. They purchase it with money donations that are given to them, and we should not have to be doing that. So I want a complete overhaul of the social support systems of this government, of the UK, and I want it to be in a way that is more that we treat the vulnerable with respect, and we treat them and give them what they need, including people with disabilities, and that we also treat like the likes of the people who had the blood contamination thing. I mean, how disgraceful is that? They should have been settled years ago, but they still haven't had their money now. I mean, we treat people so badly. We need to change our approach and start treating people with respect and dignity and giving them dignity. So I want to see a lot of changes in the social welfare type of scenarios. I want to see pledges that will, ensure that we get people off the streets, that the homeless, and it also goes across to immigration in a way, because people who are coming into this country are put into on ships. I mean, we should not be doing that. That's like treating them like animals. No. So we need to change all their social side of government needs to change massively, and we need to start treating people with more respect and dignity, in my view. So number 5 is a bit of an awkward one, because it's immigration. And, I don't think we can do anything about immigration. I mean, we've tried. Everybody's tried. The Conservative government have been trying for years. Labour tried. We've all tried. No, they can't do anything much about immigration. There are things that could be done, but which I'm not an expert on, so I'm not going to even attempt to tell you what I think should be done. So immigration really is number 5, but I don't know what the answer is, and but it needs to be in the pledges. They need to look more deeply into what can be done to help prevent these people dying in these boats coming over from France. It's just not acceptable in this day and age. So we need to prevent that, at least. Stop people from dying. If we can't do that, then we've failed. Okay, so number 6 is something which is going to be very, very difficult for me to find anywhere in any political party's manifesto. But it's I want our government to abandon the GDP, chasing the GDP all the time. We can't have an increase in our economy year on year on year on. The resources are not there in the world to support it. All we're going to do is speed up the end of human existence, basically, because it can't be done. What we should be aiming to do is make a country that is where the people are happy. I want to be happy, and I'm sure you do too. We want a nice environment in which to live. We don't need to be chasing gross domestic product increases every year on year on year on. It's not viable. So we need to take the emphasis off that. So I want a party that's going to say, look, okay, we need to increase our productivity and our, output, but not to the extent that we're going to be chasing GDP all the time. We need to do green technologies, and we need to increase the output on those, obviously, but not to the extent that we're going to destroy natural world. It's just not on. So GDP has got to be put on the back burner, in my view. It hasn't got to be up there with all the other things. But I've put it in this list. Number 7. Well, number 7 is connected to number 2 in terms of the green economy, but it's a big issue and it needs to be addressed as a separate thing, I think. So we don't encourage anyone in the UK to have ground source heat pumps, to insulate their homes, to buy an electric car. We don't encourage anyone to do those things, really. Government say that they have grants. You get a grant for a heat pump, but you don't even pay for half of it, probably. And people can't afford to spend thousands and thousands of pounds on these things. So we need to have a system where we really incentivize people to buy them. So, let's start. What's the cheapest electric car you can buy? Well, okay, let's charge everybody half the price, and the government can pay the other half. And how are we going to do that? Easy. Tax the rich. That'll pay for it. The rich can pay. And I will pay more tax. I'm not poor. I'm not rich, but I'm not poor. But I don't mind paying a little bit more tax. And I think that leads me on to number 8, which is tax. And we have got to pay more tax. We've got to pay more tax. And any political party that tells you they're going to reduce tax and never increase tax, and most of them won't even mention tax, then they're just fooling you. They're telling you lies. The climate emergency is going to cost us the earth. So we are going to have to pay to meet our obligations and to save the planet. So we have to put up tax. So tax will have to go up. And we want a better place to live. I don't want to be living in a country where the rivers are full of bottles, plastic bottles and sewage. I don't want to be living in a country where there's no wildlife because it's all gone. It's all been destroyed by chemicals and everything else. I don't want to live in a world like that or in a country like that. So we're going to have to pay to live in a world that we want to live in. And I want a clean one. So let's pay more money. So number 9 is foreign policy. Again, these are all massive subjects, by the way. I mean, this is just so huge. It's just, you can't even get your head around it, really. But I think our foreign policy has lacked any strategic direction in recent years with this Tory government. So I think we need to rectify that. I think the war in Ukraine is absolutely essential that we, say that we want Ukraine to win this war, and that's lacking, and give them everything we possibly can in terms of armaments and support so that they can do it, and the US and all the other countries need to do the same. But we could lead as an example of this. And I think also our commitments to the poorer nations, particularly those in the global south, where they are suffering from and going to suffer terribly from climate from the climate emergency, I think we need to give them as much support as we possibly can too. So our foreign policy is not the best, and it needs to change. And I think whilst I'm fully supportive of helping the Ukrainian people defeat Russia, I'm very supportive of that, but I'm not supportive of wars in Iran and all the other places, Iraq. I think we need to rein ourselves in a little bit and concentrate on our home issues. Number 10 is law and order. Law and order. That is almost disappearing in this country. We have no law and no order. And the government, the Tory government, seems to concentrate on penalising protesters, people who they don't agree with, rather than actually apprehending the actual criminals. The criminals are the government. They were the ones who should be put in prison, not the protesters. And I think as far as general police force, we need more police. We need police who are going to protect us in our homes, on our roads, in our cars. We don't, we need to get rid of all these idiots that are driving around in cars recklessly. People who are breaking into houses and stealing cars and stealing everything, stealing loads of different things. That has to stop. We've got to have more police force. Increase the police force to the extent that we had 20 years ago. That's what we need. If we haven't got a society that's safe, then we haven't got a society. So your police is almost, maybe I should have put that at the number 1. But it's certainly in the top 10. So we need law and order restored in this country. And also we need to drop all these ridiculous laws that have been passed by this ridiculous Tory government to stop people protesting, because if you can't protest, then you might as well live in Russia with Putin. So that's my top 10. I hope you found it interesting. It's not very long, and it's obviously only a small snapshot of the things that really need doing, and I haven't got a clue how to do any of them, but it's just what I'm looking for in my the manifestos that I'll be looking at. If I can find half a dozen of these, I'll be happy probably. But if I can't, then I won't vote. Simple as that. I've spoken to quite a few people, and they just say that this government and the way that the government is organised, the system in this country is not workable. And, to some extent, I totally agree. I think it isn't. I don't think it's the right system. I think citizens' assemblies would be far more effective in terms of sorting out some of these very difficult issues like climate, immigration, NHS, green economy. Citizens' assemblies drawn from random people all over the country would, in my view, be far more reflective of the opinions of the nation than these millionaires who run our government. So anyway, hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, don't forget to like and subscribe. But more importantly, put your suggestions down in the comments. Let's see what you think. Tell me if I've got any right or that match up with yours, or whether you've got any ones that I've missed out, and I'm sure you'll have loads. Okay, thanks a lot.